Hello and welcome back to High School History, and in today's episode of Expected Questions in AISSCE 2020 for History, we are going to be looking at theme 8, which is about peasants, zamindars and the state. This is the first in a series of 2 chapters from the Mughal period in Indian history. Please note that this discussion on the expected questions does not cover everything. It's only estimates based on previous year's question patterns, so don't limit yourselves to just this. This is going to be only your starting point. You need to study far more in depth to really get very high scores. But before we go further with the video, I would like you to like and share the video with your friends so that they can gain as well. Don't forget to subscribe as well and click on the notification icon so that you can get a notification the moment I'm ready with a new video. You may also join the Facebook group, which is a closed group for students and teachers who can then discuss any of the material for class 12. If you have any specific questions on this particular chapter, do put this down in the comments and I will try and answer as quickly as I can. Right, so then let's start with page 197, and the first thing that we discuss is the Ain Akbari. Remember, the Ain Akbari has been given here, and also at the end of the chapter there is also a section on Ain Akbari in the subsequent chapter, that is chapter 9. So there can be lots of 8-marker questions from the Ain Akbari, in which case you need to study the Ain Akbari across these 2 chapters together. Okay, don't study them as separately. So not only this Ain Akbari, but you also have local sources from Maharashtra and Rajasthan as well. So you may get a 1 or 3-marker question on the sources. On pages 198 to 200, there are a lot of concepts which are being covered, including... So pages 198 to 200 actually cover lots of concepts, starting from the kind of peasants that we have, especially khudkasht and pahikasht. Then we talk about irrigation and agricultural technology. So you can get questions for 1, 3 or 8 markers from this section. A lot of big and small concepts here. So study this part very, very carefully. Moving on to page 200, there is a discussion on the abundance of crops, which proves the fertility during that time. And they give you examples of the variety of crops grown, especially in Bengal, where 50 varieties of rice alone are being grown. And they also talk about 3 growing seasons, especially in the deltaic regions. And then there is a quick discussion on Rabi and Kharif crops and what is Jinse Kamil, and also the concept and also the new crops that were introduced by the Europeans from the New World. Pages 202 to 204 have long discussions on Panchayat and the Jati Panchayat. Now the question on Panchayat has been quite a favorite with the board examiners, so they ask that question quite often. So definitely you must prepare the Panchayat and the Jati Panchayat concepts, and they will most likely come for 3 to 8 marks. Then in pages 204 to 205, there is a discussion on village artisans as well. So here you talk about the artisans' miras ya watan jagir, the concept of the Jajmani system, what was the life of the craftsmen like, what were the different kinds of crafts available, especially in the rural sector. So this would also be ranging between 1 to 3 marks. Page 206 has the role of women in agrarian society. Of course, they were very, very important, and especially if villages were growing commercial crops, the importance of women was actually much higher in those villages. But there are also certain concepts discussed where we can see that women were held back as well. Patriarchy was loaded against women. So this section can also come for 3 to 8 marks. Page 208 to 211, quite a detailed discussion on forests and the tribes living there, and the kind of agriculture that they practiced, hunting, and other sources of livelihood. There's also discussion on external contacts with the villagers and also the effort of the state to make inroads into the rural areas. So how all of this was done is part of this section. So study this well. This has come occasionally in the past, so it's likely that they may repeat it now as well. So you can get 1, 3 and 8 marker questions from this section of the chapter. Then we come to page 211 to 212. We talk about the zamindars, and here where the zamindars originated from, what were the different ways in which they extended the land under their control, that some of the zamindars were agents of the state, yet there were other zamindars who were against the state and often led rebellions, especially peasant rebellions against the rulers. And what were the powers of the zamindars under the Mughals? All of this forms part of this section, and you may get 1, 3, or 8 marker questions from here. Then we move on to page 213 to 215, and we look at the land revenue system here. In this section, there are a lot of source boxes also, so you must study them as well, because the kind of questions that have been asked in the past, you are expected to produce some of the knowledge which is contained in those source boxes. So don't forget to read the source boxes to understand the revenue system of the Mughals. And then you may get questions on terms like Jama and Hasil, or what were the differences between the two, and the Amil Guzar, who was one of the important revenue collectors in Akbar's empire. Pages 215 to 216 talk about the flow of silver, or the flow of wealth from across the world into India, because India at this point of time was producing so many fine crafts and so many different crops that they were constantly being exported from here. And at least in this phase, we did not need much from the West, which meant that India had a favorable balance of trade. So I don't think there will be an 8 marker question from here. So questions may come for 1 to 3 marks. Then we come to the final part of the chapter, where between pages 217 to 220, there is a very, very detailed discussion on the Aine-Akbari. Remember to make references from the beginning of the chapter as well. In this chapter, they talk about the structure of the text, what are the advantages of using the Aine-Akbari for historical studies, and what are its problems. So what do we need to be careful of when we are using the Aine-Akbari to understand medieval economy? So as I've said earlier also, that the Aine-Akbari concept needs to be studied as a whole across chapters 8 and 9. From here also you could get 1, 3, or 8 mark questions. So with this we come to the end of today's episode. I made this presentation using Slides Mania. You can get hundreds of templates for free for PowerPoint presentations and for Google Slides. So I hope you've been studying hard all of this while. We don't have a lot of time now left for your board exams. So all the best if you're starting in a couple of days, and good luck till we meet again.